Father Al McGinnis. I'm pastor, I'm administrator down here in Greene County and of all the parishes. But back in 1991, I went down on the first trip from the parish here at St. Anne's to Patsun, Guatemala. Patsun was not really developed very much. I don't know if it is now. I don't know what it's like compared to when we were down there. But there wasn't a paved road, in the whole town when we were down there. And it was basically a farming community. And unless you went into the town around the cathedral, that's where you had the big gathering space for the people and stuff like that. You really were just walking country roads, between the different farmlands and stuff like that and the little houses they had around there. But the orphanage was tucked right in the middle of that, and it was sponsored by the nuns down there. It's been a real blessing to the parish here as well as to the orphanage down in Guatemala. And it's not like we ever expected to go down there and do anything like, we weren't going to change their lives. All we could go down is say, we're here in support with you. And we had the experience of working with that stuff from being in Appalachia, and this was just transferring it to another country. It opens your eyes. And I think that's the first part, to opening up your heart to realize, what God's asking of us goes way beyond just our families, just the people that we know, but even those that we don't know, and somehow carrying that vision of Christ's love, to all the nations. But it's life-changing. Starting with Guatemala, then working in Peru, living there for a longer period of time. I mean, we live in such a graced situation here in the United States that we don't know it. And all we keep on thinking about is, what more do I need? And God's saying, I've given you everything you need already, if you'd only look and see it.
So my name is Barbara Kirby, and I have gone to Guatemala 3 times, and feel blessed to have been part of the group that started and went on the first trip. And that was Thanksgiving 2002, and then I went twice again in 2003. So 3 times in about 18 months. It's not a trip anymore. I mean, it's they were trips, when we would expose students to the cultural aspects, what they could expect. I can remember, preparing students for that first trip. I think some of them thought it was going to be like a shopping excursion, and seeing the impact that the experience had in all of our lives, I think helped to propel it to beyond a trip to a relationship. And I think that, Pat Bristor and the student services team and everything that they've done to really make it student-centered has again evolved that from just a trip or a trip every year to every twice a year to a relationship with the Children's Center.
Yeah.
In some respects, it seems like the happiest, most beautiful place in the whole world. And then in other respects, you see abject poverty and just a life that could be described as difficult. But the joy that comes through, particularly when you're at the nutrition center, really elevates the experience to be something that's kind of transcendental. And the joy that is exuded and shared, it changes the person's life who goes.
Yeah.
And then in the evening at prayer time, they're all sitting around singing the prayer of St. Francis, and in Spanish. And then our students were singing it in Spanish or English. And it was just incredible. It was really helped me to focus on what our charge is on this earth, and I think I carry that with me always. Over the miles that that we're so connected to a place and to these children who have now, many of them grown up, have been beneficiaries of the education at St. Anne's, the scholarships at St. Anne's. It's really just been an evolving friendship. So
my name is Pat Bristor, and I'm the Associate Dean of Students. And I started going to Guatemala in 2005 This trip in May of 2019, I believe, will be my 12th trip. So I became interested in the Guatemala mission trip through Barb Kirby. So Barb, and I really don't recall who she worked with, who was in charge. I don't know if it was Dave Calvario or somebody else in the Center for Service Leadership that helped to plan the trip. But Barb proposed the trip in conjunction with St. Anne's Church and started the mission, I believe, in 2002. And I was very interested when they returned to hear about the trip, the children, and the opportunity to just go to another country and experience that. So when Barb stepped down, I just kind of started being the leader. The Guatemala trip, as I mentioned when it began, there was, I think the first trip had maybe 7 or 8 students. So the numbers basically are based on how much room is at the center and how many people we can accommodate, or how many they can accommodate. The students that go prefer the May opportunity and the longer period of time, because now when we get down there, we're actually being more immersed into the culture and getting really better and more time to get to know the children, the area of Patsun, the nuns, and the surrounding community, because we have more time to explore and to get to know. And when we go for a week, it seems like we get there, we get to know the children, and then it's time to go. So, so it's really kind of evolved in that sense, the trip. When I first started going, there'd be 75 to 80 children, many of whom I'm still in contact with, many, unfortunately, that are still at the center. Now there's about 45 to 50 children, and the government has now come in and has set some different regulations within the center, and not just the one in Patsun, but across all of Guatemala, with trying to get children out of these centers back home. And I often tell people, if you don't like children, you don't want to go on this trip. One of the biggest regrets I have in life is never having children of my own. Having gotten married later in life, and things just didn't work out for me in that area. To connect with the children, and to have them communicate with me to this day. You know, to call me mom is, I think, God's way of, even though I didn't have my own biological children, giving me children to allow me to fulfill that role in another way. I've had the opportunity to bring one of the children to my home and share her with the university, with the students here and the community. I've changed a great deal. I'm not as materialistic as I used to be. And I think it gives me an opportunity to just be myself. So at the university, I have a lot of responsibilities, very structured, very, what I think is organized. And when you get to Guatemala, that doesn't matter because you're on their time. Seeing that. In my faith, it has definitely made me stronger in my faith. Being surrounded in the environment in Guatemala, having been raised Catholic, and the center is run by Catholic nuns, I feel more at home there. But seeing the strength that the children have in their faith has helped develop mine. Has helped also to know that I'm doing God's work. You know, and I believe that down the road, years ago, some reason God put me at Waynesburg University. And I've often said that if I had the opportunities afforded to me as a student when I was in my undergrad, or if I would have attended Waynesburg University, I'm not sure where I'd be today. And I think that I probably would be a missionary. And I think that all of that is coming from my experience in Guatemala, God's protection of me and all of the students that have gone on this mission trip with me. And there's been probably over 150 students that have participated, many of which have gone more than once, many that have gone down on their own after the trip. And I think that that's another part of what Waynesburg does, in giving students the opportunity to explore through these different mission trips, but also helping them to become advocates for the programs or the children or the centers or whatever it is their mission trip is working toward, to continue that work outside of the actual physical location, in this case Guatemala. So we do a lot of fundraising, especially in the fall, now that our trip is in May, for students' personal trips. But over the years, we've also developed what we call the Project Fund, and that money is utilized to pay for a child's education, to do extra things when we're down there, celebrate birthdays or have pizza, special projects that might be needed once we get down there, as we experienced this past year. Our main project was to replace a roof over the girls' dormitory, and when we got down there, there was a drain pipe issue that they asked if we would be able to contribute. So we were able to do that. Providing school supplies and shoes for the children, different things like that. So we can't do that when students are already fundraising for their trip, just to make sure they have the way to get down to the center. So the Project Fund was developed as a way of supporting the center in general, but also providing extra opportunities. So we do things from clothing sales at the football games, spaghetti dinners, Guatemala lunches. We work with the Institutional Advancement Office on Phone-a-thon. So there's a number of ways that we have worked with the fundraising efforts. And our, not just the Waynesburg University students and faculty and staff have been very supportive over the years, and but even people in the community, past participants, it's been wonderful to see the support that we get from them.
It was really hard knowing any Spanish, let alone medical terminology Spanish, so that was very difficult. But I feel like I can do an assessment in Spanish now, so I feel accomplished in that way. You just have to go. You just have to go to experience it. Nothing's going, no matter what anyone says, it's just not going to sum up what's there. Like, it's such a special place. Like, not only is it beautiful, even though some parts of it's dirty, but it's so heartwarming. It changes your life. It brings you closer to God. There's just something special about it, and I'll always keep very dear and close to my heart. Thank you.
Yeah, so Joshua Daines, I was a business major my 4 years here at the university. I graduated in the spring of 2015, and I had went on the trip 3 times with the university. Went down 1 time with St. Anne's Catholic Church, and then I've been down 2 times by myself. So a total of 6 times in the past few years. Eating some pretty cool foods and experiencing a culture and a people group that is nothing like we are, but still has a zeal and love for life, much more so than most of us do, which is really cool. Common universal language is just like laughter and love in that sense. And so I think whenever you whether you put yourself or you end up in a challenging situation, that's where growth happens. And I think for me, that was really my first time where I was put in a place where I was uncomfortable, and I started to think about, why do I do the things I do? Why do I say the things I say, or whatever it may be? Definitely that punch in the gut to kickstart my faith is one of the biggest things that it's meant to me, and I've been able to hold on to. And also, like, everlasting friendships too. I still keep in contact with some of the kids on there. I still have my bracelets on. I haven't taken them off since, 2014 probably, 2013. So it's just like, right, I always got the kids with me. There we go. You guys get it. Yeah, so it's just like that connection that you feel like you have. And actually, they'll reach out to me on Facebook all the time and like start chatting me up. And I haven't been down there in a few years. It's been a little while, and it's like, I don't know, those friendships don't go away. So it's really special. You feel like you've bonded with them on a pretty cool level.
My name is Jonah Cooper. I was on the Guatemala missions trip in May 2018. I think the way I would describe the trip is get ready to experience what true love is like. When I was on the plane, I distinctly remember thinking to myself, I can't wait to pour into these people, and I can't wait to really bless these people that we're going to meet. And I was completely wrong. I was the one who came away blessed. I was the one who came away feeling like my cup was just running over. So I just think that when you go into it, you have to go into it with an open mind and get ready to really see how these people live. And by that I mean get ready to be blessed, because just the way that they love, just the way that they want to be around you, and when you're leaving, how their hearts are broken, you really get to see what these true friendships look like. And there are people there that I will never forget. Even though there's such poverty there, there's such richness of life there. They love richly. They love the Lord richly. They love each other. And just to see that and be a part of that was honestly one of the best days of my life. And it taught me a lot. I'd say the second experience I had that has stuck with me was the dump. When we were working at the nutritional center, we would take all of the garbage that we had or the things that we couldn't use anymore, like broken blocks, and we would take them to this dump, and it's this huge cliff. And it should have been beautiful, but when you pull up, there's wild dogs everywhere, there's just mounds of garbage. And the practice was you'd just throw it over the side of the cliff. And this place was pretty disgusting. And yet, it was gorgeous. This beautiful ravine, and just the way I saw it is, man, despite our refuse and despite our sin, God's beauty is far and away above that, and it can't be drowned out. So I think that's some of the things that I learned in Guatemala that have really stuck with me all these years. I remember just being so nervous, like, how am I going to interact with these kids? And yet, something that I've really learned from that trip is that the love of Christ has no boundaries. You can communicate Christ's love even if you don't speak the same language, and even if there's that huge language gap there. I have developed such a relationship with these kids that I feel like I'll never lose that. Guatemala to me means surprise, because I went there thinking I was going to bless people, and I'm the one who came away blessed. Guatemala to me means service, because when we were there, I thought I was going to serve them, and the sisters who worked at the nutritional center you could just see their servant's heart, and they worked both in the kitchen, they worked for the kids, and they also worked in an emergency room there. And just people coming in, you could see how they had this love for people that they didn't even really know. And that reached out to the kids, to the people in the community, and to us. So I learned a lot about service on that trip, and it was from watching those sisters.
Almost 16 years I've been back home, but it's life changing.
put yourself, you end up in a challenging situation, that's where growth happens.
Get ready to experience what true love is like.
You just have to go. You just have to go to experience it. Nothing's going, no matter what anyone says, it's just not going to sum up what's there.
But it certainly impacts my life every day. It certainly changed the way that I think about things and resources and how I use resources and hopefully not waste resources.
So I think that that's the important part, that this becomes part of our life. We say it's life-changing, and it truly is, but it's not something that happens and then we come back and we forget it. It truly becomes ingrained in our hearts and our minds and our souls. These children, this place, and the love.
Anything you want to add?
I think I've said it all.